The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
Thanks for joining us for the latest edition of the West Tigers podcast, episode number 461 if you're counting along, but it reminds me a little bit of Jerry Seinfeld talking about McDonald's. He says, why is McDonald's still counting? They've sold 600 billion gazillion Big Macs. Like, who cares? Like, does 461 really matter? Do we really need to know that? But hey, why not? Certainly, why don't we get to 500 and we might stop counting maybe after that. But Josh is here and Nick is here. Good to see you guys. Last of the Mohicans. There's a little bit of a Chiefs reference there for you, Nick. It's a post-loss edition of the West Tigers podcast, and I think the West Tigers fan base is all feeling just a little bit like that poor kid. I was sitting on the opposite side of the field, and if the camera had panned to me, I don't think my face would have been much more positive than that poor little guy.
That poor kid. So I watched the game at home. Thank God I was at home, Joel, and not where you were at Ocean Protect or Ocean Gate Stadium. But yeah, that poor kid was front and center of the big screen on Fox. I don't know if he was on Channel 9, but when I saw him, instant reaction was, oh, the poor kid. But then I saw him all over social media today with a lot of comments, from people saying, oh, Mother of the Year and all this sort of thing. It wasn't her fault. It was all in good fun at the time. But geez, I felt sorry for him. And you know what? I'm a grown man, well and truly grown man. I was riding my e-bike to work today and I had tears streaming down my eyes. Not a good day, mate.
Certainly feel like sort of the bottom's dropped out, like it feels like that empty feeling, horrible empty feeling. And it wasn't much fun out there. I could talk about the game day experience out at Ocean Protect Stadium, but that's a whole other can of worms. Josh, disappointing afternoon. I thought, though, we started out okay. After 15 minutes, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, we're well and truly in this. We're playing better. I wouldn't have never dreamt what was to come.
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought the first half we were probably in some ways unlucky not to be up. Like they scored 3 tries off 3 errors from us in our own kind of 20, and we probably bombed a couple of opportunities to score. Like on a different day, we could have been well up at half time. So I thought the first half was okay in some ways. But then also I thought one thing was really noticeable is that our line speed wasn't as good in the first half. And I thought when we were tackling them, all season we've been hitting blokes and kind of stopping them at the line and driving them back. Every tackle, it felt like we were catching them and kind of they were then taking 3 or 4 meters kind of after the tackle, even in the first half. So they were running harder. And we were, and they were probably tackling. They weren't tackling great either, so I don't think either side was magical. But then the second half, yes, it kind of. I think it just got too much for us when we were down on troops, and then started to fall behind. And I think you've seen that probably not just with probably the first time you've seen it from us this year, but it's happened in a lot of games, and lots of games where 2 halves have been very different. Almost, I think we could have been well up at half time and then run out of puff in the second half. Would have reflected a lot of games we've seen over the last few weeks. Even the Knights Souths game before us, one team was well up and the other team came well back, and we just ran out of puff with a lot of troops down. So yeah.
It is, as we say, a game of momentum, and certainly in that second half, the momentum was not with us, and every time we got the ball, we dropped it. So we had no chance of building any momentum when you just keep dropping the ball. Let's launch into our one-word submissions for the game. I've got all the one-word submissions from the West Tigers podcast forum. Thanks to all the members there, some really good ones. We'll go through those in a moment. Nick, what have you got for us?
Well, mine, for those watching on YouTube, is written just here next to my name. It's depressed. So, as I mentioned before, I've been very depressed since, probably since the back end of the first half, to be honest. And you're talking about the momentum of the game, and then, both of you, Josh and Joel, but I honestly thought we started slipping away a little bit in terms of, staying in touch with the Sharks towards the back end of that first half. I think the stats were relatively even. I'm not entirely sure in terms of possession, etc., come the first half, but I honestly thought that unless we scored before halftime, which we didn't, to claw it back, I thought we might be in trouble. And sure enough, the mistakes mounted early in the second half, and we lost complete control of that game, and it ended up spiraling. We'll talk a bit more about it, but yeah, depression, Joel, deep, deep depression. It feels like 2025 or the previous 13 years all over again.
I've got a scary result, maybe not a statistic, but some results from last year that we'll go through shortly as well, as to why we might be like on the precipice one way or another. What about for you, Josh?
I've actually got two different words to note, John. I'm going to cheat a little bit. One is injuries, and I think that speaks for itself, both the injuries coming into the game and the injuries during the game. I think that had a big effect on us. Like if I look at some of the other teams, even Penrith, if you took out Nathan Cleary, Dylan Edwards, Mitch Kenny, Liam Martin, which is kind of what we were missing after that first 10 minutes from the Panthers side, I think they'd be fairly well done as well, maybe not quite to the extent, but I think that's had a big effect on us. And my second one is just forgettable. It's a forgettable day. We should just forget it, and I'll be trying to. That's for sure. So yeah, but injuries I think are the main takeaway for me.
I think we're all of agreement that we could probably handle 2 or 3 injuries, but after that, we were going to start feeling it, and I think that's what's coming to fruition a little bit. Even though, I mean, I'm glad to hear that the New South Wales Cup team had a win and Jersey Flegg had a win, which is fantastic. But yeah, if you look at our top 30, once you start getting past player number 19, 20, we starts getting a little bit thin, which we all were worried about. I've got mistakes, which, yeah, it's just obvious, isn't it? Like, you can't keep dropping the ball and have any hope of beating anybody. So mistakes is the word that sticks. And a lot of those mistakes were just absolute gift-wrapped gifts. Here you go on a silver platter. But I've got form as my word. I'm going to pick form. And you could use it in a sentence, and that sentence is West Tigers playing other teams back into form for 26 years. And then I wonder and worry about Melbourne, who's in all sorts of trouble and is really struggling for form. We'll talk about Melbourne shortly. I thought we might dive into wingers. I've got another stat here. Our wingers this year, I don't know if you've seen this, our wingers apparently have, not achieved is not the right word, have racked up 40 errors so far in 9 games from our wingers. And that's not a great statistic. Skelton can't get a look in. There's some rumours around that Skelton might be going to the Eels. Is there something more to that, do we think, boys? That, you've got a guy that's got some first-grade experience. He had that howler. He threw that silly ball at Campbelltown in goal, but I thought he'd been okay all through the year. What do you think, Josh? Is he out of sorts? Is he out of favour? Or is it because we're going to offload him?
I think he's out of favour. My feeling probably is, and he did look a little unfit. I kind of think in the off-season he probably wasn't up to standards. Benji talked about the standards a lot in the off-season. I get the feeling he probably wasn't fit enough. You think, Luke's been picked above him, who's leaving. Tavana, who didn't even have a contract, has been picked above him. Obviously, then you've got Taruva and Makasini as well. But the fact that those two have kind of come over the top of him to take positions says he's out of favour with Benji. Kind of, he's on that edge and he's kind of getting on that bench and has some good moments. But I just probably think he hasn't trained hard enough, would be my guess. And he is off contract at the end of the year. And I think the club's probably decided they're moving him on. And maybe you do it sooner rather than later and use some of that money. And I know we've already got a couple of spots available, but you use whatever money we can get to bring someone else in. Maybe bring in a centre. Who knows?
But after that performance, Nick, you'd probably say that Tavana's not going to be featuring in the NRL side for a while. I think maybe that performance might have changed the lay of the land a little bit. If the thought was, well, Tavana's a good replacement for Skelton, I just think Tavana showed that he's probably not quite ready yet.
It's hard, isn't it? Because he's had a couple of games and he was awesome.
It was good.
Like everyone was flying his flag and talking him up, including myself. And then he came out and look, he had a stinker. I'll say it, as it is. He had a stinker, but so did others. Sione Fainu dropped multiple balls yesterday. I actually put myself through the trauma of watching about half an hour of the second half just before we jumped on. I wanted to watch that second half to watch the capitulation happen again and try to look at different people specifically. But yeah, in regards to Varner, I wouldn't expect him to play this week. And I know in our group chat, I did throw up a suggested team for this week against Melbourne, which included Skelton. I actually hadn't heard the rumours about Skelton and the Eels. So, look, if that's on the cards for him, I think we're all kind of getting the hint the last sort of month or so that he's, not in the favoured list of wingers. So he's probably not going to be starting, anytime soon, unless there's injuries or massive drop-offs of form, which is what we've just seen. But again, not just all on Tavana. But yeah, interesting one. I'd expect Tavana to go back to Cup. He's only a kid. He probably just needs to get his confidence up a bit and then come back in and do what he did, a few weeks ago when he was scoring miracle tries.
You would think that Macassini, if available, Josh, would be coming back into the team this week, and I would suggest Herbert as well. I mean, that obviously leads us into talking about Toa, who I thought was absolutely abysmal.
Yeah. Look, it'll be interesting to see what Benji does tomorrow when he names the team. Sometimes you'll see coaches when the team's had a really bad day, they'll actually stick with the same guys from the previous week and say, go out and show me that you do have better than that. And sometimes I think that might be the right approach. Look, I think Tavana, yeah, he made some horrible errors and had a bad, especially first half, a couple of those bombs and then just some drop balls in contact as well. I think about 4 errors in our own kind of 10 meters. But he did in the second half keep going up and trying to take those bombs. Like, good on the kid for having a crack. I think if Macassini is fit, he'll come back in. I'm not sure exactly where. Look, I don't think Toa was great. I don't think Madden and Suka were great on that. Like that whole edge was.
Yeah.
I agree with the criticism. I think Toa was great, but I think the whole edge and the combination of it was more the problem than the individuals in some of that defending. Like you saw, a guy had missed tackle, but actually looked inside him. The 2 guys inside him were too spread out, or they weren't coming up at the right angles. Like it just looked like 4 guys who hadn't played together.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, it was 4 guys who hadn't played together. So perhaps that kind of is a reflection of that.
Joel, you were out there yesterday. I know the commentators on TV kept talking about the wind. How strong was it?
There was barely any wind.
Barely any. Because
Yeah.
on Fox, they were talking about how the Tigers had a big advantage in the second half.
No, there was
Okay.
barely any breeze at all. Not even noticed.
Wow.
Anything to notice. When we parked, I looked at the trees as we walked down the street to get to the ground. They're blowing a little bit, but yeah, nothing more than what you'd have in a normal afternoon. So yeah, I don't know where they're getting that from. So yeah,
Okay. Interesting.
that very interesting crowd, I've got to say. Like I've been out to that venue a number of times over the years, and it's pretty much the same every time. But they're a very different fan base to West Tigers. Like when we go to Campbelltown or Leichhardt, like you can sort of tell that the people are there for the game, and we're all intense and where it's about the game. But for the Sharks fans, it seems more like a social gathering where there's a bit of a game of football as well. It's a very very different fan base. Yes, but it's the first time I ever went there was 1993. We lost, Tigers lost that night as well. But that ground hasn't changed at all. I can't believe that they've never spent $1 on making that place better to watch football. Funny place.
I haven't been there for a long time, Joel, but definitely watching on TV the apartments behind the grandstand
Yeah.
on the far side. That's fairly new to what I'm used to seeing. But I've been down there a few times. There's a bit of a bottleneck getting down there towards that Woolooware golf course end, and I think if you keep going, you run into the beach. But what was the balance of Tigers Sharks fans? Were there many Tigers fans down there?
Well, I went with with some members and sat in their seats, Cronulla Sharks members. They said this is more away fans than we pretty much ever get. So there was a lot of Tigers there. Yeah,
Were we allowed?
unfortunately, wasn't a lot to make noise, but yes, not to make noise about. Unfortunately, but yeah, we were there in numbers, and we all walked out with sad faces. Some of these stats, so 17 errors for the West Tigers, 37% possession, which is just horrible. 61% completion rate, average set distance only 35 meters, kick return meters only 74 meters. I was looking forward, 15, 20 minutes in, I'm thinking to myself, Royce Hunt's going to come on and he's going to rip and tear and he's going to take on his former teammates. 2 runs from Royce Hunt, very disappointing from him. But what about Alex Twal? 62 tackles, which is, he's
Yeah.
just the energizer bunny. And let's be a little bit positive for a little bit. Like, I thought Dewey's try was great. We looked such a different team with Dewey there. And the try to Taylor May. I mean, Samuela, it was good combination. There was some positives there, and then it just all fell away. I mean, how much is it worth really diving into that game and trying to get something out of it other than what we've already spoken about? It's one, I think, just that we hope was an aberration, Josh, and that we can sort of put in the rear view mirror and learn a few lessons.
Yeah.
The trouble is though, we're still weak. We're still missing players. That's the problem, hey?
Well, and we're actually missing more
Yeah,
players than we were last week. I think the loss of Samuela, the loss of Dewey. Hopefully, we get KPP back this week. Look, I think a little bit for this week with the injuries and with all the and I don't think it had a huge effect, but all the kind of stuff going on around the club this week as well. Maybe you do just put that one in the rearview mirror and move on. But look, and I think there are a couple of positives. I thought. Luke Lally on the other wing, I thought
yeah,
he
he had a
ran
good game.
hard. He had a good game. I mean, not much went that side, so that
Mm,
helps.
mm,
I thought Pole in the middle was probably the best of our forwards. I
yep.
thought he actually made but outside of that, I didn't think the other forwards, they had decent numbers, but I think as I said earlier, kind of the Sharks seemed to overpower them, which is the first time that's happened.
Mm,
I think we just kind of put it in the rearview mirror, have a and go down to Melbourne and but the attitude's got to change, and often after a big loss, the attitude does change for
mm,
for all teams. So that'll help. But the people is the challenge because I think more than anything yesterday we missed Appy. That
oh,
line speed, that
100%.
effort in the middle. Like we talk about the edges, but the fact that they had so much ball in our half, the errors caused it, and the edges, weren't great. But that line speed and those kind of things, that's all led by Appy, and we really missed him
Mm,
yesterday. And he's not back next week, and he's not back the week after. So it might be a hard couple of weeks coming up for us.
mm.
And we got a horrible record without Appy too. I heard that mentioned. I don't know if we talked about it in the last
Yeah,
pod, or
we
maybe
did.
they talked.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
One
they
one
talked.
from 8 or something like that, or one from 11 or something. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that might have been mentioned in the coverage too. Josh, you just mentioned or you touched on the week that we had last week, and I've been thinking about this as well. And it's easy to think about these things after you've had a heavy loss, but obviously with all the Luai stuff that happened last week, and the way that it came out and how happy he was. And then what annoyed me, and I know we spoke about it during the week last week, was how he posted for the next 24 hours all about the Chiefs, and he was sharing their media stuff, their promos and all that, which is, I get it. But you contracted to West Tigers for the
Mm,
next year and a half, which he knows. And we all know that he's going to knuckle down and put that West Tigers hat on and move forward. But off the back of that, then we had the great news, with the May boys, coming out and re-signing, but even albeit with that practical joke that they did, which was a bit of a weird one to take,
yeah.
especially against the West Tigers fan base who's pretty touchy, including myself. Anyway, I could see the funny side, so very happy with that as we all are. And then the Buller rumours as well, just before the game, that he'd agreed to terms to stay on with West Tigers, but really disruptive week. I do wonder
Mm.
how much that had an impact
Mm,
on the performance. I know Benji will come out and Romeo will come out and say no, had nothing to do with it, and they shut that down in the
mm.
press conference. But I do wonder if that had an impact at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, and I think we all wonder that. I think those kind of things. I thought Jerome actually played really well. I thought he was, his side of the fence held up. He created some tries when we had the ball. Not that we had much ball. So individually, I thought he did fine. Look, I kind of think that's a good story, and it kind of leads into, and I'm sure the papers will push this over the next couple of weeks. But as I said, I think you take out three-quarters of the spine of any of the good teams, and you take out your back rower. Um, it's a real challenge. I mean, we look at the Storm this year; they've been playing well with their stars, probably mostly all available. If you took out what Fayalogo, Grant,
Mm,
and Jerome Hughes all out next week, we'd be like, yeah, we're going to go down there and win. So,
yeah.
um, I think the injuries probably are most of it. and the stuff around it probably maybe had an effect this week in just that focus and attitude during the week. Even the May re-signing, like that's it was Luai on day one. There was the public holiday. There was Luai. There was the May sign. Like every day there seemed to be something, and I think that probably takes a bit of distraction off at training, and everyone gets a bit light. And hopefully the boys will maybe the flogging taught them a lesson, and they'll be back on track this week. Might still not be enough, but hopefully back on track this week.
Yeah, obviously we were decimated, and we're going to be further decimated playing the Storm this week. But yeah, that distraction. For me, we played like a team that was just distracted. I don't think we were on. The mistakes are one part. And I know Tristan Hope's a very, very different hooker to Api Koroisau, but he really struggled to get us on the front foot. I've never seen a game this year, and we've only played 8 or 9 games now, where we've struggled to make meters. Even watching back that second half this evening before we jumped on, it was disgusting. Like the very first set we kicked off, Cronulla ran 100 meters and nearly scored. They just bombed a kick in our left-hand corner or on our right side defence. But the way they rolled through us up the middle, they were quick out of dummy half. Their backline was working really well. Their outside edges were killing us on either side, well, especially on our right side, which is extremely flaky. But we just did not play like a team. And I mentioned it on the last pod, I honestly thought that even shuffling a few players around and bringing in Tony Suka, I thought we'd be able to keep to our West Tigers standards that we've sort of built on throughout the first 8 or 9 rounds of the competition. But for me, we just fell completely apart. It was like regression all over again, going back a year or longer. I'm very worried about this week, but we'll get into that soon.
I mean, I was just going to say, Josh, I mean, you can't take a player of the class of Api Koroisau out and there not be some repercussions as to how you play. And Tristan Hope, credit to him, but he's not Api Koroisau. He's not that level of hooker.
Especially for 80 minutes, too.
Yeah. And look, I'm not sure he would have played 80 minutes if Adam didn't go down in the first 10. I think that, that made it hard. And credit to Tristan Hope. I thought he worked really hard. Like, he isn't Appy and we can't really compare him to Appy, but I thought he put in the effort. Also, so the one weird stat in this game was that, we made 426 tackles compared to the Sharks' 254. So almost 500 tackles, which is insane. Yeah. We only missed 29 tackles. Like actually in the middle, like
we've missed more tackles than one.
We've missed a lot more tackles than one. So I thought that at least shows a bit of a sign that, and now we made 17 errors and most of those errors were within 10 meters of our try line. So I think that kind of drives it. But the fact we only missed 29 tackles means, look, until that last 15 minutes, I thought it wasn't great and they weren't quite up for it, but there was a reasonable amount of effort in the middle, There it probably just wasn't, it was probably 10% below, and then you take out Appy and you take out Appy. I think that the energy he brings to that middle in defence is something you really notice when he isn't there. I mean, we saw it the week before. They had 10 minutes without Appy, and Raiders scored 2 tries. So and that's not a criticism of Hope. I was surprised how decent he played. I thought his passing was good, but he's just nowhere near the same level, and that's. That it just is what it is.
Isn't it funny too? Like I'm sitting here spiraling in depression, and I'm drawing comparisons about our performance to last year and previous years. We didn't have Kai Pearce-Paul, and you look at that right side and how flaky it was, and it makes you think how much better that right side's looked until yesterday, and the difference it's our team played with, or that difference that we had in our defensive structure yesterday without him in the team. So. Yeah, he was a massive loss.
Yeah, 100%. And the good news is he'll be back this week, which is fantastic. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's run through these one-word submissions from the West Tigers podcast forum. LFC Tiger, their word was inept. London Tigers, write off. Not to say that we were right off our game, but let's just write it off. Let's throw it in the shredder and don't overreact. Teddy S's word was diabolical. Mercy Rule's word was weird. It's a weird NRL season so far with weird results. Hopefully the Sharks result was just a weird result for us on the day. NatMax78, their word was depth. It didn't look good. We can't afford to be missing everyone who's out at the moment. Tiger Stew, their word was thud. That's us falling back to earth, falling back to reality. I don't like reality. I want to live in fantasy land. I was much happier up there. Mike's word was mistakes. Our completion rate was not NRL standard. Silly as Sodus. Overreact. Let's not over one game. Snake said it was defining. Back to the pack with a thud. Peter A came up with adversity. We just couldn't handle it. Tigersman, turnstile, our right side defence. Tavana and Toa were diabolical. Mac Tiger said Galvin. Now, I've edited this slightly for a family podcast, but at least he's struggling. Yes, he is. Well, his team is struggling. He's doing sort of all right. I hate to say it, but anyway, Dirty Reds, their word was nightmare. Worst performance in years, and enumerator was out enthused. And I wonder if that's a good sort of one just to have one final analysis of that Sharks game is I thought what the Sharks were throwing at us was pretty rudimentary kind of stuff. And that's what frustrated me in the last 20 minutes. They weren't pulling off anything that was too extraordinary. That was all pretty simple stuff. And I just wonder if somewhere along the line we'd lost the mental game. As much as, yes, 100%, we're down on players, down on skill, down on class, but just something mentally was off. And let's put our bright, rosy coloured glasses on, Nick. Every team in the NRL this year has had a day like that where they've not turned up.
They have, and I have heard that mentions the last couple of days that it has been a very strange season, and with the speed of the play to balls and the speed of the game in general this year, that you're going to get some weird results and some lopsided results, especially when one team gains all the momentum, the other team can get buried very quickly, and that 100% happened to us yesterday. I just wanted to mention one other thing that I noticed on the Fox coverage is when I can't remember her name, the young lady that was doing the halftime reports, when she was giving the update from the West Tigers sheds, she actually said that Benji was very happy and proud of the way that his team had gone over the first half, and he just wanted us to use the conditions and use our fitness to come over the top of the Sharks in the second half. Now, happy and proud, I wasn't happy or proud after the first half. I honestly thought we were probably 8 points too many behind, and we'd made a few mistakes, crucial ones, a couple that led to tries. So that just made me wonder whether the whole mentality was slightly off.
Yeah.
Just along the lines of what you're talking about there.
Yep. And I think those distractions do have to factor in. I mean, we lost our captain to another team, whether it's going to be in 18 months or not. A senior member of our football club signed with another club last week. There has to be some scar, scar tissue that gets pushed. That something there that just rocked us a little bit. And it's a combination of factors. I think just being off a little bit, maybe a little bit arrogant. Sometimes maybe we've got to looking at the ladder, looking at the Sharks. Oh, they're not doing so well. All we need to do is turn up. Every team does that every now and then. let's just zoom out a little bit. I think the thing that I said last week in regards to Luai and what happened is it's not going to be an issue if we keep winning. Josh, it's like you can't just like magically wave a magic wand and win games. Like I'm not saying that it's in anyone's direct power to win a game, but it's important for the club to not capitulate after this and not reflect what happened last year.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Although, look, I kind of will put away the next couple of weeks, not because of Jerome. I'm kind of like, look, if and hopefully we win one of the next two. Like that's probably, I think best case scenario. I'm more looking at, after the bye, hopefully Buller's back. It depends on, Appy will be back. Hopefully Buller's back. We still obviously, I think Sam and Adam, but I think if we could get at least those two back, then I think you can kind of make an assessment of how much of it is injuries and how much of it is kind of other things happening. Like even if we lose the next two, it's hard to put it down to all these things happening around when you're missing 3/4 of your spine, you're missing your number one back rower. As I kind of said a couple of times, I think you can't really make a fair assessment of other things happening in the club while those things are going on, especially like, if both games are absolute floggings, well, that's perhaps a different story, and that talks to attitude. But if we lose, but they're reasonable games, and in this day and age, I think anywhere within 20 points is, reasonable that the way the momentum goes. Then I think you go, well, the attitude's still there, the team's still doing well. We're just down on troops. I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason. A lot of these guys play New South Wales Cup who are coming up to replace them. It's because no one else wants to play them in NRL either. Like that's kind of the point. So,
Yeah.
look. So yeah, the next couple of weeks, I'm probably willing to give it a pass as long as it's not horrible. But then it'll be interesting to see after the bye where we land. And yeah, yeah.
Josh, you're going to be content if we lose to Melbourne by 10 points next week?
Yeah, I think I am. If I look at no Buller, no Dewey, no Appy, no Sam Fainu, if we lost by 10 points to Melbourne, I down in Melbourne on a sunny afternoon, I'd be content with that. I think that's a good effort to come back, especially if it's like, you know, 28-18 or something, where but like if it's 50-40, that's a bit weird, or if it's but I think, as long as we go down there and put in a good effort without our spine and without our number one back rower, 10-point loss, I think I'd be fairly especially like at some stage Melbourne are going to turn it around. Hopefully they don't turn it on next week, but
it's likely they
10
will,
points
right?
to be okay.
Yeah, you just have to think that, like Joel said at the start, we have a weird way of playing teams into form, and it's almost like the pieces of the puzzle are going to fall into place. They're coming second last. Poor old Craig Bellamy's been diagnosed with a horrible, I don't know exactly what the disease is, but some neurological disease. I hope he's okay. But I get nervous. Like I've been talking about potentially, let's look at the ladder for the next 6 or 8 weeks for a few weeks now, because I'm very nervous. And now we're starting to drop recruits like flies. We've got Melbourne, who are going horrible and very likely to come out and beat us this week. Yes, I'm being extremely pessimistic, but this is me right now. Then we've got Manly. Like, I'm not even confident at the moment. If we are as decimated, I'm going to say decimated, we're missing quite a few troops, and I know we get KPP back, but if if Adam and Samuela's out, we're in a bit of trouble, and Buller's still out. Then after Manly, we've got the bye, thank God, but then we've got the Dogs and we've got Penrith. I can't remember if that's a correct order or not, but we've got a horrible 4 or 5 weeks coming up, potentially.
Yeah.
And if you look at the table at the moment, Melbourne looks sort of the most winnable, obviously the Bulldogs as well. But it seems like the script is written and not in our favour, but I'm being pessimistic as well.
And all of a sudden, we start sliding down the ladder. In a few weeks, we could be 8th or 9th, and then the pressure's back on. The pressure's really going to be on the club. I'm getting very nervous, Joel. Don't know if you can tell.
Well, I told you I shouldn't do this last week. Remember, I had the 8. It was 8 from 17. Now it's 8 from 16. So 50% from here on. That is our challenge to make the finals. Last year we lost 64-0 to Melbourne. We all remember that day. That was Ryan Pappenhausen was absolutely on fire that day, and then that was the first of a 6-game losing streak. So that's what we're worried about. And I know we're going a little bit negative, but I wanted to say we don't know what the team is going to be named, but I see some potentials there to maybe right the ship a little bit and be a little bit stronger than what we were. I'll ask the question first of all. Presuming that Samuela's out, what do we do with that left edge second row spot? Does Suka switch over there? Do you put Alex Seyfarth in? What do you do without Samuela?
So I was talking up that I wanted to watch Suka play last week, which we did yesterday. And to be fair, he played on the side that got absolutely hammered. So I'm not going to write him off right now. Although when I was putting my team together today, I did swap out Samuela for Alex Seyfarth. I thought he could probably plug a hole. And more, I actually like the lines that Alex Seyfarth runs, and I think he's pretty good defensively. So I think he's a bit more rangier and probably offers maybe a little bit more on attack than Suka does. I think Suka's very solid, even though we didn't get a great chance to see that on that right-hand side, which got hammered yesterday. I don't know, Josh, what would you do, mate?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about this earlier. Let me just go to my my team that I selected. I think I bring Seyfarth in. I think what we need next week after that kind of effort is blokes who are all effort. And there's one thing we know about Seyfarth. Might not be perfect, but his effort is there. And I think he's an experienced NRL second row. I think KPP and Seyfarth would make me feel. But I'd have Suka on the bench, I think, but I think Seyfarth, more experience, and it'll be a tough game with shorter guys. I'd be having Safat out there on the edge, and I think that just gives me a little bit more stability
Mm.
coming through. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think his experience gets him over the line. I think
yeah.
Madden and Luai no doubt will be the halves, but you know what? I think we maybe not so much missed in that game against Cronulla, but one thing that I think Latu brings, and that's straightening us up. And that straight running that he does off the bench. So I think we've got to find a spot for Latu on that bench for sure, Nick.
And his defense, he's very
Yeah.
aggressive with his defense, and I think we missed that as well yesterday.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
I thought Madden's defense was probably the worst of the night.
Yeah,
I
it was
thought
poor.
he was. There was one try there, and it in the second half there where he was coming up to the line and he turned in, and then he slid back, and then he turned back in again. And look, Toa wasn't great either, but Toa did follow him all three times. And so
Yeah.
when your outside man looking at your inside man is going in and then sliding back and then going in again. And he was leaving gaps. I thought I was actually really disappointed with his defense. I thought that was a fairly horrific display in defense by Jockman. I'd have Latu at halfback because I think, to my point of standards, I think his defense, it wasn't the tackling, but I think on an edge, everyone takes their cues off the half and where they're going. If he can't work that out and be in better positions and be telling his outside men where to be, I think he deserves to go back to the bench, and I'd have Latu in at halfback. I think he's a bit stronger in
I don't mind
defence.
it. Yeah.
And he's got a lot of talent. Like, it's a different halves pairing, but I'm not sure who does all the kicking because I don't think either him or Jerome particularly good. But maybe that's Jerome's time to step up with the boot, and Latu just does a few kicks. But yeah, I'd have Latu in halfback.
I can't wait to say Latu, and I've been saying for a little while, I want to see more of him, and maybe this is his opportunity. But
Yeah.
one thing I just wanted to mention, Josh, is what I noticed from watching a bit of the second halfback was how bamboozled we were in defence on that right side when Cronulla threw pretty basic shape. So they were running a couple of second phase plays and they were standing a bit deep. All it took was Nico Hines to, run straight at the line with players in motion, and our right edge had zero idea what was happening. And you're right, Madden looked lost. Toa wouldn't know how to count up. Like, I remember way back in my trainer days for the Magpies, at training, you would get the guys standing in defence and you would get them to point at who's in front of you. And even if they're running shape, you keep your finger up and you're pointing at who you're marking. And if someone's running around the back of someone, then that's when you start to shift. But we had no idea. Poor old Madden and Hope kept getting tangled up. At times when Cronulla basically fell over the line, Taruva, who was trying to do his best at fullback to cover it, was just standing there looking completely bamboozled, like he had no idea even what to say or who to blame. But it was an absolute mess.
I do wonder, and we talk about Buller quite a lot on this podcast, but the fullback often sets, how many people are here, what you guys going there. I think we really missed that. I think Taruva is a great running fullback, but that's probably the thing any fill-in fullback, but also perhaps he doesn't do as well, is counting numbers, getting guys in position, kind of the stuff you can't see on a field.
Yeah.
But the stuff the fullback's job is to kind of go, you there. But so I remember one game they mic'd up Teddy for part of it in a trial, and just the amount of talk he was doing about, guys going here, you go up there, you get forward, because you can see everything from back there.
Yeah.
I do think that has a big influence on kind of defenses as well. So
Taruva is a winger playing fullback. You can kind
correct.
of
It's
see
no
it and
blame
feel
to
it, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we missed some of his returns, kick returns as well, coming in off the wing. It took away some of his strengths. I think he does an admirable job, but he's not a full-time fullback, Dick.
And just quickly on Taruva, I get why Benji's brought him to fullback because he's probably our next best option. But I've always said it, and I always will say it, I hate weakening one position to try and strengthen another or even plug a hole with another. And Taruva, yes, he's very loud. He's loud in general, not just on the football field, but I think we miss his direction from the wing, pushing in and all that. I think a lot of that had a lot to do with the lack of cohesion that we had on that right side as well. Just no talk from the outside in. And the guys inside had no idea what was going on. They just looked completely bamboozled. I'd rather see Taruva out in the wing, but I guess that raises the question what you do with fullback. But
well, you put Luke back at fullback. I mean, that was his position always coming through. we can probably put, especially if Macassini's fit, you can put him back out in the left wing, Taruva onto
Yep.
the right wing.
Yep.
It feels stronger that way,
Yep.
and the fullback doesn't make a lot of defensive decisions. But I think, as I said, Luke was a fullback coming through. I watched him in Cup a few times. Like, he looked lost on the wing, but he actually looked good when he played fullback. Maybe that's the go to kind of strengthen that three-quarter line, especially against a Melbourne team that are going to be aiming there all day.
All day. Yep.
Where does Herbert fit in this week? Do you think he takes Toa's spot?
I would. I think he played well in Cup. I didn't see the game, but I heard from all reports that he played fairly well. Obviously, he was in
Yeah,
a
he was
winning
good.
side, so you're going to look good in a winning team. But I like what he's done in the few games that he's played for us in first grade. Like anyone, he's made a couple of mistakes, but I think overall he's been pretty solid.
Yeah, look, I actually think Benji will probably stick with Toa, but I would probably, yeah, it's a close one. I think, there's something to be said for Toa as your experienced center. You got to tell him to go out there and do better this week. Um, and again, like, I'd probably go, and I don't know what they are, but almost I'd go, which four players on that, or which three players, because KPP will be one of them, out of Madden, Latu, Toa, Herbert, Taruva, whatever, which combination has the best combination from a defensive side? So, ignoring the individuals, just say which three have the best connection to each other. You know what? You three, you might not be the three best. It could be, who knows who it is. It could be Herbert and Tavana or whatever. You three, get out there, because I know that when one does something, the other one's going to know what they're doing, and they're all going to move as one, and they're actually going to right positions. And maybe they'll miss one or two extra tackles, but they won't miss 7 line breaks because they're all going different directions. So,
any chance Hayward gets his debut?
I'd like to think so, but from what I've been hearing from a lot of different people, I don't think he will. And I'm only going off what I saw in the trials. I haven't seen him during the season. Is he playing flag? He's playing flag,
yeah,
right?
yeah, he's playing, and he's been playing great in fleet. Like, he looks a step above that grade,
Yep.
but he's just not I don't think he's physically ready.
Well,
I think Charlie Murray I'd have coming off the bench to play a bit of
Charlie.
hooker as
Yeah.
well.
I put Charlo Mokes down the bench. The one thing I will say about Hayward is in the trial that he played, was it the Leichhardt trial? I can't remember. Maybe he played both.
Yeah.
He came off the bench, but instantly when he came on, he looks better than Tristan Hope. So for me, and he was playing against men in the trial, so I know it was a trial, and they go at a slightly different intensity. But for me, he looked more creative. He looked like he was going to, offer more than what Hope did with the NRL team around him. I'd give him a crack. I think this is almost a game where you might give someone like Hayward. I've even got Javon Andrews in my top 19 for this week to possibly debut. I just think there might be an opportunity to bring him on for 10, 15 minutes off the bench and see what they can do.
Yeah, Javon Andrews, I've watched quite a few Cup games this year. Javon Andrews has been really impressive. He's only 19, and probably in defence and it's not, he's actually quite good on the structure, but he's just, he's a kid. He's still, physically he's probably not quite there. He's a big guy, but he's, a bit gangly, but he kicks well. Like, he can boot the ball. He creates with every chance he gets. Like, we're talking about Luai leaving. It wouldn't shock me in 2028 if Javon Andrews is the 5'8". I just wonder about, we're coming off a 50-point loss. We're going down to play Melbourne. Admittedly, they're not the same Melbourne. Is this the game you want to bring kids on? And maybe it is, or do you wait till you've got your full strength team and then you can bring Hayward off the bench for Appy for 10 minutes when we're playing the Gold Coast and with a full strength side, or the Dragons with a full strength side? So, I
get the feeling Benji's going to be laying there tonight going, what do I do? Do I go conservative? Do I stick? Do I shake it up? It's going to be an interesting team list to talk about on the next edition of the pod. And maybe Bunty Afoa too could come in a little bit more thrust off the bench as well.
Love to see Bunny get a run. Really would. How's he been going, Josh?
Yeah, he's been good. Look, I think he's one of those guys, like, we think about Bunty as kind of a big charging forward, and he does have a couple of charges, but he's just, he looks like an experienced professional in Cup. Like, he's in the right places, he runs hard, he tackles, his defense is actually really consistent. Like, it's not about smashing blokes, he hits consistently and is in the right spots, and like, he looks like a guy you could bring off the bench and it'd be solid, there wouldn't be any problems. Mav Guy, who's been playing prop as well, has actually been playing fairly well down in that grade, and he's a bit of creativity, and can kind of play lock and second row as well as prop. So maybe he's an option to kind of come up onto that bench spot. But yeah, they've both been playing like the cup team has only won a couple of games, and that sounds really bad, but they've probably been right in it up until the last 5 minutes in 3 or 4 that they've lost, and just not been able to, Ben Stevanovic at the halfback is probably not Jock Madden or Latu Banu in that thing always, and there's a few kids, but they could have easily won 5 out of 7. Like it's, so play wise, they've all been playing reasonably well.
Well, for those watching on YouTube, I've just made a change. He's now happier, Nick Hayes. The West Tigers podcast has cheered him up a little bit. We've talked about some potentially positive things. Come on, Nick, it's going to be all right.
I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be all right. I haven't. When do we play Melbourne? Is it Saturday?
Sunday.
Is it another 4:00 game?
No, it's the earlier game.
Okay. All right. Well, I can get that out of the way and maybe mow the lawn or something afterwards. But yeah, I don't know. I'm worried. I can see us losing, and if we lose, we're going to lose to Manly. I can just see this snowball effect. I don't want to be negative, but I can't help it. I just have a feeling we're going to slide, and all the pressure and the media is just going to flip. It's going to be, rather than West Tigers at a happy story, now where look at what's happening to the Tigers. They're falling away again. So this has to be the year we play finals. I don't want us to fail on that. I'm just extremely, extremely nervous and anxious. It's not going to go the way that I want it to go, that we all want it to go.
Well, we've got to be positive, Josh. Our grand final used to be in April, but now at least our grand final's in May now. So we're getting better.
Look, John, we only need 8 out of 16. We play the Titans. We play the Dolphins. We got a couple of games against the Dragons in the second half. I think we'll come home strong, even if we have a bad next few weeks. So I'm still feeling confident about the season, very much so.
The only thing that worries me with that, Josh, is if we lose several in a row, which is possible, by the time we get to the Dragons and Titans, they're not going to be easy games. And you know what we're like under pressure. Anyway. That's
an old team, Nick. That team's gone.
Say something to cheer me up, Joel, because I'm spiraling.
Okay, so if you remember when the West Tigers were, and this will come back and haunt me, but the West Tigers were a poor team 3 years ago, right? No matter how much they tried, no matter how much effort there was, they just couldn't score the win because the other teams turned up and they were just better teams, right? So Melbourne, with all due respect, are not playing good football and have some very good players, but have some pretty average sort of players around them. I think they're beatable. And I know that the script is not written in our favour, and it's a huge game for the club, and it would be a fantastic 2 points to get. But don't go jumping off the bridge just yet. Like I think I have a feeling that we've changed, and that was hopefully, fingers crossed, just a bump in the road. That's my feeling.
I hope you're right. I know we'll preview the Melbourne game in a couple of days, but I won't get too much into it. But old Harry plays over it on the Melbourne side in number 9. I'm a bit worried about Harry, but we'll talk about that in a couple of days.
Exactly. But yeah, we've still got some guys that they would look at our team sheet and go, well, what are they going to bring this week? Anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Speaking of bridges, build a bridge and get over it, Nick. Alrighty, thanks, guys. And of course, West Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the discussion. All the live game threads are there where the one-word answers go in. Keep popping those in. It's much appreciated. We can talk about signings and all sorts of stuff there. And subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And thanks for listening in if you're listening. And we'll catch you again in a few days. So thank you, boys.
Thank you, Joel.
Thanks, Joel. Can't wait.